Nithyananda. Dear Deutsche Welle, we the monks of the Sovereign Order of KAILASA Nithyananda would like to respond to your articles that is spreading Hindu-phobic, racist, lawfare and disinformation against KAILASA and the minority indigenous communities represented by KAILASA. This is in regard to your article that is published on your website on 1st of December 2023 and attributed to AFP AP titled, quote-unquote, Paraguay official ousted amid deal with non-existent country. It is very unfortunate that this article was published by you without contacting us. As a prominent media outlet, I am confident that you understand there are always two sides to a story. We would have appreciated if Deutsche Welle had contacted us. In the future, please make sure that you contact us to hear our side of the story prior to publishing articles that you've done earlier. So we would like to avail this opportunity to set the record straight about what happened. Deutsche Welle, by publishing this article, is undeniably responsible for furthering one-sided disinformation campaign inciting hate against the persecuted Hindu community. We strongly condemn any such Hindu-phobic racist lawfare and disinformation which is systematically perpetrated through such articles, which, as history has shown, is a weapon that imperial racists had perpetrated transnationally for thousands of years, which has displaced millions of Hindus, pushing them into generations of homelessness and statelessness. While Deutsche Welle may not be the author, Deutsche Welle is responsible and accountable for the ramifications of hosting and disseminating disinformation that is carried through this article. I'd also like to touch upon the violation of the ethics of journalism and the article's falsehood. As a prominent media, you may be aware that it is internationally recognized by various media self-regulatory bodies that ethics of journalism include, number 1, truth and accuracy. Number 2, independence. 3, fairness and impartiality. 4, humanity. And 5, accountability. Unfortunately, your article does not fall under any of the above mentioned ethics of journalism, violating the very standard internationally practiced. For these serious violations of principles of journalistic ethics and these serious instances of journalistic non-integrity in the article, we request you to immediately address the points that I'm going to be stating. In your article, you falsely refer to the SPH, quote-unquote, as fugitive, fled India in 2019, wanted on various criminal charges. You also have made several statements regarding the false allegations of sexual offenses. Let me put it clear and straight. The reviver of the United States of KAILASA, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Jagadguru Mahasannidhanam, His Divine Holiness Bhagavan Nithyananda Paramashivam, has dedicated his life to the revival of KAILASA. He has over 4 decades of service history and numerous accomplishments to his credit, and each and every one of this have been well documented and presented for every one of you. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is not a fugitive, but the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is a persecuted individual whose basic human rights have been brutally denied. This, once again, is well documented with a plethora of evidence. Additionally, Interpol has rejected any request to issue any notice for the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism based on the evidence that was presented to them, clearly establishing that what the media has stated is not true. Furthermore, the media has falsely stated, quote-unquote, Nithyananda, who is wanted in India on several charges. It is important to note that despite nearly 15 years of malicious prosecution in India, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has not been convicted of any crime. 0 crimes. The unproven allegations in India of rape are false and malicious. Once again, this is again well documented with ample evidence. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has been proven innocent and exonerated in US judiciary more than 10 years ago. An Ohio federal court ruled in favor of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and fined the false victim nearly $500,000 in penalty. This was in the US court, the District Court of Ohio, in case number CV 526. We need to understand the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is a persecuted individual whose basic human rights were brutally denied, and he has been subjected to a decade-long lawfare. It's also noteworthy that many prominent world-renowned human rights advocates, including King's Counsel, Mr. Jeffrey Robertson, has given independent reports and legal opinions attesting this. The omission of the US court orders that exonerate the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism's false accusations, and at the same time, in sharp contrast, actively spreading disinformation in relation to the above-mentioned false accusations, has amplified our already persecuted minority indigenous Hindu communities of KAILASA. Once again, we strongly condemn this racist lawfare and disinformation that is perpetrated through the media by such false statements. Your article falsely stated, particularly referring to KAILASA as, quote-unquote, a non-existent country, a fictional state, a fictional country. I'd like to clarify here. Is Taiwan, Kosovo, or Palestine a state? Some would say yes, others would say no. But what is incontrovertible here is that self-determination, a term used in the United Nations Charter and various other international regulatory bodies, this self-determination is a human right which is enshrined in multiple international instruments. Another incontrovertible human right is the right to freedom of religion. These are the rights that are being exercised by all of KAILASA's citizens. KAILASA may be less recognized compared to other states, but that does not deny the people of KAILASA from exercising their fundamental human rights and the political rights of building a diplomatic relation and recognition. KAILASA is a sovereign entity as per international law. KAILASA by its very nature is non-violent, a humanitarian service-based nation. And we are being hammered, we are being persecuted by Hindu-phobic, Hindu-mesic, racist forces denying our right to exist, denying our right to get recognition, denying our very right to survive. People with a common origin, history, language, culture, customs, and a religion can turn into a nation through the awakening of a national consciousness. A nation can exist without a state, as is exemplified by various stateless nations that exist today. Citizenship is not always the nationality of a person. The United Nations International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ICCPR, recognized by 178 nations, in its very first article declares, all peoples have the right of self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. I also want to share further details about the hate crimes and shocking racism in the article published by Deutsche Welle. Around 3200 BCE, 56 such nations protecting the civil, political, religious, and human rights of 10,000 indigenous minority communities. The Hindu Holocaust is the biggest physical and cultural genocide of the indigenous people on planet Earth. More than 500 million indigenous Hindus were killed, massacred, raped, and brutalized in the most barbaric ways. During these 5,000 years of Hindu Holocaust, not more than 3,000 of these indigenous communities remain alive today. This was and is the biggest crime against humanity in the world history, displacing millions of Hindus, pushing them into generations of homelessness and statelessness. The roots of such mass genocide of 500 million indigenous Hindu people and the brutal genocide of billions of indigenous people all over the planet is rooted in imperial racism and discrimination. Racism perpetuates negative stereotypes and hateful narratives against minority ethnic groups that have brought these unforgettable genocides throughout the planet. This article, written by Deutsche Welle, expresses and amplifies the shocking racism and absolute disregard for even a bit of sense of respect for human dignity. Particularly, your article expresses and incites extreme racism, dehumanizing hateful sentiments towards the people of Kailasa, negatively stereotyping the entire persecuted minority indigenous Hindu communities of Kailasa as if less than a human, as a cult, while racially discriminating and dehumanizing the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism by calling him a Hindu cult leader. The Deutsche Welle article delegitimizes and dehumanizes the people of Kailasa, denying them the very right to be treated as equal human beings. Such racism, as carried in this article, is not just against the UDHR Article 1, which declares, quote unquote, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, but also constitutes a hate crime prosecutable under Section 130 of German Criminal Code, which criminalizes hate speech, including incitement to hatred and insults that assault the human dignity based on racial, national, religious, or ethnic background. Additionally, such racism as carried by Deutsche Welle in your article is liable to bring severe penalties and legal ramifications. I'd like to state a few examples. An individual who negatively stereotyped and dehumanized the Kailasa community, referring it as a cult and the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism as a cult leader, was penalized $500,000 in case 2:13 CV 526. Likewise, in civil case RS 1013793 in the Superior Court of the State of California, an individual made a complaint in which he described the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism as a cult leader and the people of Kailasa as a cult. The court dismissed the suit and ordered the individual to pay $500,000 for the crimes. In the Superior Court of California, County of San Bernardino, in case number Civil RS 1401615, on 8th of December 2017, the court penalized a media channel, Samaya TV, and the associates $5 million for damages and costs for defamation and civil conspiracy. This judgment is often recorded in international law journals as one of the most significant defamation suits brought against media. In your article, it is stated, quote unquote, false officials duping, who also appear to have duped several local officials, signing a memorandum of understanding with the representatives. Let me clarify that the document referenced was not a memorandum of understanding, but a proclamation. As it is a proclamation, there is nothing that Kailasa receives in return. Furthermore, even a MOU would have merely been just a statement of possibility of the contributions in the future. However, Kailasa, without any vested interest, without anything to gain, without any obligation to contribute, completely, selflessly, has already contributed millions of Paraguayan Guaranis worth of medical aid to support the people in the said local community in Paraguay. This was on November 9th, 2023. Kailasa's humanitarian aid is not gathered through taxes as most established nations would, but instead is raised through hard work and sacrifices of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, and the contributions of the hard-working individuals of the persecuted minority indigenous community who are inspired to do the same, witnessing the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism's relentless sacrifices and unshakable commitment towards this mission. However, it is unfortunate that through Hindu-phobic, racist articles, media such as Deutsche Welle has derailed these humanitarian services that Kailasa is committed to. Deutsche Welle, by hosting and publishing this article, has extraordinarily amplified this systematic persecution. Instead of recognizing the extraordinary contributions, the authors and the publishers have put a systematic and focused effort into the vulnerable community who are the beneficiaries of Kailasa's humanitarian aid. Another statement that is mentioned in your article, quote unquote, admitting he'd been conned, their motives for duping him were not clear, etc. Once again, I'd like to state KAILASA is a sovereign entity as per international law. KAILASA is the revival of the ancient, enlightened Hindu civilizational nation which is being revived by the displaced Hindus from around the world. KAILASA is recognized international body. It has established bilateral relations and has not scammed anyone. Organizations and institutions representing KAILASA have established diplomatic relations with many cities, many states, constituencies, municipalities around the world, bridging cultures, encouraging interreligious dialogue, and continuing our Hindu-based humanitarian services to promote global peace through a better understanding of diverse cultures. In your article, it is also falsely stated, quote unquote, Chamorro told reporters on Thursday that purported officials from the United States of KAILASA had told him the country was a South American island. Once again, this statement is completely false, fabricated, and in complete contradiction of the publicly stated and widely circulated facts. KAILASA's representatives have never stated to anybody that KAILASA is a South American island. KAILASA has already clarified this several times earlier, including an official press release to a question by the Singaporean media companies, the Business Insider. Additionally, neither has Chamorro nor any other official anywhere have made any such statements to any media or to any person to such effect. Such blatant false claims have not even arisen anywhere else. Thus, what is mentioned in this article by Deutsche Welle is very clear that it is completely concocted, fabricated, and defamatory. We demand a sincere and an unambiguous apology for the blatant inaccuracies presented in your article and publications. A correction or clarification acknowledging the false information and providing accurate details about KAILASA is imperative to rectify the harm caused by you. Your role as a responsible media obliges you to act in public interest and uphold journalistic integrity. We anticipate your prompt cooperation in setting the record straight and in doing so, cease the perpetuation of the harmful narratives that you're promoting. We expect a resolute and a corrective response from Deutsche Welle. We're open to further discussions and providing any further additional information required. Please feel free to reach out to us at contact@kailasa.org if the need be. Thank you.